Hello, everyone, dear Manhwa fans. I hope you're having an amazing day. Before we get started, I want to give a special shout out to those who left comments on the previous video, sending a big hug to all our loyal followers. And a special mention to DarkGamer3492, who once again was the first to comment on the last video. Thank you so much. Now, without further delay, let's jump into this exciting summary. Meanwhile, Choi and Seola were waking up inside the apartment. Choi noticed that Seola was acting a bit strange. She admitted that she felt like she had made a mistake and asked Choi not to mention anything about what happened yesterday, wanting to leave it behind. However, Choi understood that having a ceremony didn't mean they had to forget about it or avoid talking about it. In the middle of the conversation, Seola threw her pillow at him, but that wasn't what mattered to her at the moment. She now wanted to take a shower and for Choi to take her afterward. Seeing her reaction, Choi could only think that she didn't appreciate what happened yesterday. However, Seola herself didn't know what to feel at that moment. Outside, Yumin was reflecting on the day Cho and Kin disappeared, particularly remembering how beautiful Kay looked that day. But Yumin quickly dismissed any strange thoughts, knowing she had no reason to be concerned. To her, going out to eat with a friend on the weekend was normal and didn't seem out of the ordinary. Suddenly, she saw Seola and Choi leaving the building, which left her confused. Yumin approached Choi and asked if they were dating, to which Choi denied it, but couldn't come up with a good excuse at that moment. Before Choi could say anything, Seola greeted Yumin and explained that she had gone to Choi's house early to get help with an assignment, but realized he wasn't much help, so she decided to leave. Meanwhile, Choi silently admired how quick-witted Seola was. However, Seola wanted to know why Yumin was at Choi's house so early and dressed so nicely. Yumin tried to find a good excuse, but the words wouldn't come out, leaving her in an awkward situation. At that moment, Yumin moved closer to Choi and suggested they go out to eat as good friends, which annoyed Seola a little and put Choi in an awkward spot, not understanding why the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Seola then grabbed Choi's arm and explained that they already had lunch plans together, which created some discomfort. However, Choi came up with the idea of inviting both of them to eat together. Although Seola seemed annoyed and Yumin looked disappointed, they both accepted the invitation, even though Choi still couldn't fully understand why the girls were upset. Days later, Choi was still thinking about the tense atmosphere he felt between Yumin and Seola, even though both had spoken naturally. However, he was in a rush to get to class and hurried down the hallway, suddenly bumping into a girl. He quickly apologized and helped pick up the book she dropped, noticing how cute she was. He asked if she was a new student since he was returning for another semester and hadn't seen her before. The girl didn't understand the question, but Choi asked her to wait a moment, then handed her a can of coffee as an apology for the trouble and quickly left, feeling nervous about talking to someone so attractive despite having prayed a lot recently, leaving the girl alone. That afternoon in the teacher's lounge, Yumin was focused on her work when she noticed her colleague beside her looking very happy. Curious, Yumin asked why she was so cheerful, but addressed her as Professor. Although the girl replied it was nothing special, Yumin knew she was lying because her happiness was obvious. This is where we are introduced to Choi So-jun, a talented young woman who had gained popularity in the city for becoming a professor at a young age. Her lectures were famous and well-respected, making her a role model for Yumin, who sometimes wasn't sure what Professor So-jun was thinking. At that moment, Yumin realized it was time to leave and asked if she could head out early, to which Seo nodded. However, before Seo could say anything else, Yumin was already gone. Seo was curious about who the boy she met was. Meanwhile, Yumin was heading to Choi's class. After the classes ended, some of Choi's classmates were discussing where to go next, but he left without saying much. As he walked down the hallway, he thought about the upcoming event and how he had no plans related to it. Suddenly, he noticed something that made him hide quickly, although he then peeked again, still not fully understanding why he had hidden when he saw Seola, feeling embarrassed about what they had done. At that moment, Kim approached Seola and suggested they go to a cafe together to do homework, surprising Choi. Even though Seola seemed hesitant, Kim insisted, and Seola accepted the invitation, leaving together. Choi watched the whole scene and felt proud of Kim for her initiative, until he was interrupted by Yumin, who wanted to know what he was up to. She wanted to know what Choi was looking at when he peeked, and she realized it was Seola. She asked him why he was spying on Seola and Kim, but he denied it. Yumin pointed out that he was getting too flustered, even though he claimed it was just about a group assignment. However, Yumin casually mentioned that Seola was using the same shampoo as him that day, teasing Choi because she didn't like him keeping secrets, which could end up making her mad at him. All Choi could think about was why Yumin was making such a fuss if they weren't even dating. So, he stopped her and asked why she was so interested, knowing it had nothing to do with her. These words only made Yumin angrier. She was worried about him and asked why he was speaking to her so harshly. She asked if she couldn't be interested or curious about these things, especially after everything they had been through together. She questioned if it really shouldn't matter to her. Before Choi could respond, Yumin, even more upset, asked if she wasn't allowed to know what the pervert who liked praying outdoors was up to. This made Choi realize that Yumin was right to be concerned, especially because she had always worried about him, and they had prayed together. And all he did was yell at her. He immediately apologized after realizing his impulsive reaction, and explained that he felt so embarrassed and upset when she mentioned Seola that he reacted that way. Yumin then asked if they had really prayed together, because she saw them leave together, but Choi didn't know how to respond. Yumin, in her thoughts, knew she should apologize because it shouldn't matter to her who Choi prayed with, but she wondered why she felt so upset. Suddenly, Choi suggested taking her out to dinner, but Yumin looked around, leaving Choi intrigued. She then decided to give him a punishment, which confused Choi, who suspected that Yumin was wearing her cosplay under her coat. Yumin kept watch while making Choi kneel, and he was quite nervous about the situation. Then, Yumin took out a strawberry ice cream and told Choi to stop staring at her ice cream and lick it. This embarrassed Choi because, even though Yumin said it was a punishment, he felt it was more like a reward. That same afternoon, he cursed himself for thinking he was spending too much time with Yumin, even though he wasn't sure if it had always been that way. He never imagined he would feel excited in a situation like that. Yumin, on the other hand, was embarrassed to notice that the chalice was beginning to glow, but she couldn't help but laugh a little at how Choi was eating his ice cream. Suddenly, Yumin made a small noise, mostly because they heard something at that moment, wondering if someone was nearby. It was other engineering students, and one of them had dropped some weights. Luckily, both Choi and Yumin hid before being spotted, leaving them both feeling like they were just moments away from being caught. Despite the scare, Yumin wondered if she felt a renewed faith for being so close to getting caught, or if Choi was just too good at eating. Even though she had tasted some of the ice cream, Yumin couldn't stop thinking about her faith in God. Choi started talking to her, but she barely paid attention as her mind was elsewhere. However, their conversation was interrupted by more students leaving class. As they walked away, some wondered why the assistant Yumin was spending so much time with a guy like Choi. Meanwhile, Choi almost had a heart attack from the scare, while Yumin seemed more interested in finishing her dessert. Although Choi tried to explain how risky their situation was, Yumin reminded him that his punishment wasn't over yet. She then teased him, asking if he was embarrassed or afraid of falling for her. This made Choi blush, but he didn't know how to respond. Even so, he felt a rush of excitement inside, as he wished for Yumin to find faith. So, he suggested taking her to a place he described as dangerous, but also safe, which sparked Yumin's curiosity. She couldn't believe a place like that existed, even after all her years at the university. Choi asked her to follow him. That same afternoon, they went to the bathrooms near the courts. Yumin blushed even more as she realized what Choi was implying. He tried to explain that the place was dangerous because anyone could walk in, but also safe, because almost no one used it. Plus, it had just been cleaned. Even though Yumin pretended to be upset, she was actually impressed, calling Choi a genius for his creativity. She asked where he got such ideas and if he was really that perverted, to which Choi remembered scenes from religious movies he had seen online. Now Yumin was starting to get excited about the place they were in. She asked Choi what he planned to do next. Although he intended to make her read the Bible, he guessed she expected something more exciting from him. So, Choi decided to imitate some things he had seen in those movies. He told Yumin that he hadn't been to that place in a long time and wanted to enter a stall to pray. Yumin was confused, but Choi asked her to clean the chalice to begin. Yumin suggested entering a nearby stall, but Choi refused, saying he would keep watch, and asked her to do her part. The request caught her off guard, but deep down, she felt her soul was seeking peace. A bit self-centered, Yumin joked that Choi was just copying lines she had already said before, which he mentally denied despite his actions. Even so, Yumin was impressed to see the chalice glowing brightly, while Choi thought she was just showing off at first. However, he soon realized that Yumin was truly passionate in her pursuit of faith, and he couldn't even stop her. Choi, remembering a religious game he had played, knew that what they were doing was risky since the game always warned not to try that in real life. Of course, that warning didn't apply if he met a girl who was genuinely interested, like Yumin. She became increasingly curious, and asked Choi if he was enjoying the piece despite the unusual situation. Choi, acting indifferent, told her it was something normal, which confused her even more. Then Yumin asked him for advice on how to improve, making Choi blush as he wasn't sure how to respond. Although his knowledge of how to clean a chalice was limited, he told Yumin to focus on the deepest parts and make sure they were spotless, which left her amazed. Despite his embarrassment, Choi tried to stay composed. Yumin, more determined than ever, called him a perverted master, something Choi denied, although deep down he was glad she was listening to him. Of course, Yumin was going to follow his advice, so she tried her cleaning technique once more. Choi knew in his mind that compared to Yumin, who was quite curious and somewhat mischievous, her desire to learn about religion was surprising. He didn't believe he had the same level of understanding as her, especially because she looked so cute while cleaning the chalice, something that Choi found incredible. While she was focused on her task, Yumin suddenly heard voices coming from outside, but Choi, lost in his thoughts, didn't notice them until he saw Yumin had stopped cleaning and looked worried. That's when Choi also heard someone whispering outside. Without thinking, he grabbed Yumin and they hid quickly, realizing he had been so distracted that he hadn't noticed others nearby. On the other hand, Yumin was impressed by Choi's quick reflexes. As the intruders entered, they noticed someone had hurried into one of the stalls, slamming the door shut. They were both puzzled but assumed the person was in a rush, leaving their coat and backpack lying around. Choi was worried they almost got caught. Then he noticed Yumin mumbling something. He thought she was still shocked by the incident. Her heart was racing. Impressed that Choi had waited until the last moment to act, while he silently wished the others would leave soon. Determined, Yumin wanted to start reading the Bible. Embarrassed, Choi asked her to wait a bit longer until the others were gone, but Yumin firmly replied that her soul needed to be purified at that moment, leaving Choi speechless. When the intruders finally left, they heard a small noise but didn't pay much attention. Yumin wondered how praying could bring her so much peace, especially when she was with Choi. He, feeling a surge of intensity, decided to read the Bible faster. In the midst of it all, Yumin opened the door with her foot, but neither of them cared and continued their ceremony. Choi felt that Yumin was becoming more liberated with each prayer. She then confessed that, although she didn't know much about religion, thanks to him, every day now felt like a new opportunity. She even called him a master of perversion, which annoyed Choi, who retorted that she was the real master of mischief. Still, Yumin asked him to continue teaching her more things in the future together, which confused Choi since he didn't understand what kind of confession that was. Meanwhile, at a cafe, some students were whispering as they watched Seola and Kim working together as a team. Kim invited Seola to dinner later, and she agreed. Of course, despite being interested in what they would order, they first needed to finish their task. Both were focused on their work but kept checking their phones frequently, as they were curious about what Choi might be doing. This is where this part of the manhwa ends. I like to leave you all in suspense to keep you interested. If I see more support, the next part will be longer. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, leave a like, subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share it with your friends. Also, leave a comment to share your thoughts about this great manhwa. See you in the next part. Bye.